With a lot of us anticipating OP13 and the upcoming ban list on the horizon, a lot of people have really forgotten that PRB02 has officially dropped in the East. Now, with PRB02 comes many different cards, unlike the original PRB01 where only the leader Sanji was unique. There's a lot of new interesting cards that a lot of people are excited about for various decks, as there's not really like a theme to these cards, they're just boosts to these different archetypes. We're going to be going over a deck list for every single unique card within this set. Now, I'm not talking about the alternate arts or anything like that. I'm just talking about the new cards, these. Some of these deck lists are going to be flagship winners, right? Because events have already started happening in the East, or maybe just different lists that a lot of players have posted. And then some of them, because not every single card is good, are going to be a little bit more grinded towards the theory crafting, right? Maybe they hit some more niche leaders that a lot of people don't talk about. Make sure if you want to see updates on the Eastern meta and also the ban list, OP13, etc., subscribe to the channel. We make content all the time. And because I need to pay rent this month, let's hear from more from our sponsor. Den Garden is officially celebrating their 1-year anniversary. This mat's on sale. This mat's on sale. This mat's on sale. Literally everything on their website is slashed for this anniversary sale. You can pick up some old favorites or brand new designs on their website at a discounted price and stack my code Atrocious on top of that for 5% off. This anniversary sale is not going to last forever, so make sure to click the link in the description below and get your new favorite playmat today from one of my favorite people out here in the community. Thank you again to Den Garden for sponsoring this video, and congratulations again to 1 year of great things. Now, let's get back to the video. Now, the first card that we're going to talk about is the 4-cost Koby 5,000 power Navy sword, 1k counter. It has two different effects. The first one, on opponent's turn, if your leader has the Navy type, this character gains 1,000 power. Also, when attacking, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power base or less. Then, if you have 6 or less cards in hand, draw 1. This has a little bit of potential in Koby specifically. One, because it is a red-black Navy leader that can gain 1,000 power on this character, making it a 4/6. But honestly, if you can't KO a chum blocker or anything that has that 3,000 base power or less, you have the ability when attacking to refill your hand, right? A big problem with like red and this kind of color combination is sometimes draw is hard to come by. You run out of gas a little bit after a sec. So here's a Koby deck from a flagship that I recently saw in this new PRB02 format do pretty well, right? A lot of the package is the same. You've got your search effects in the Kujaku, brand new, even some draw in Sengoku, as well as your typical bodies that you have in Helmeppo, Koby, the secret rare, Doll, Ripper, Arumaki, and this list playing a full playset of these Kobys. Especially if you don't necessarily have like any sort of removal focus, right? A lot of players probably in this spot would have played something like the 4-drop Kuzan. I think just in this list, right, it has counter on it. It has the potential to gain even more power, especially on opponent's turn for the defensive side. And you have the ability to draw cards. If you saw our unbanned tournament the other day, Koby has some strong suits of its own within the meta. And especially if you're talking about a rogue category, you're looking for a fun, cool rogue deck, I think Koby's really up there, especially because we're going to be getting this promo here soon in regional packs. So even though this card might be a little expensive to get and maybe a piece you don't necessarily want to get, you at least now have the opportunity to get it. Now, I know a lot of people have been really excited for Trafalgar Law. This 6-cost, 7,000 power Punk Hazard, 7 Warlords of the Sea, Heart Pirates, 3 typings on it. Has 2 effects as well. Once per turn, if this character will be removed from the field by your opponent's effect, you may give this character minus 2,000 power during the turn instead. Very similar to the 5-cost ace that came in the starter deck for Edward Newgate. Then when attacking, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2,000 for the turn. One of the decks that I know most people are excited for with this card is Smoker. Red Green Smoker running a tear within the meta, right? Especially after it won the Miyagi championships. It's just another really good searchable card, right? Especially off of either Virgo being a punk hazard type card or Perona as a card that has slash. Especially when played off of something like the Dracula Mihawk, you could go ahead, play a Dracula Mihawk and this Trafalgar Law on curve because of your leader effect, right? Getting 14 Dawns worth of value on an 8 Dawn turn. A lot of the stuff, at least with this list that I saw on Twitter from Noah, I don't know how I would pronounce the actual handle, is pretty similar to what we saw in the Miyagi championships, right? This double searcher combo as well as the 2K that is searchable off of both Perona and Virgo, and the absolutely crack card in Hody Jones. The 10 cost Beppo I feel like is really interesting in the list, and maybe especially is searchable off of the Perona, is maybe a boss monster that people might want to try out. But I'm really excited about this Trafalgar Law because I think it's actually really nice, especially with the minusing and trying to trade bodies, control the board, can synergize really well with Mole Pistol as well, right? Think about doing the minus 2000 and then doing even more minus with Mole Pistol to be able to clear bigger bodies off the field, especially on the defensive side as well, similar to the 5-drop Smoker, getting a plus 1000 power boost because it is a punk hazard type card. So defensively, it survives even longer. I'm a huge fan of Smoker actually in OP12 and also post ban list potentially. So it's going to be really curious to see how good this deck can become in the upcoming formats, not only in the Eastern meta, but also the Western meta. Now, Shanks, although fell by the wayside after OP11 started and Blue Purple Luffy became the most dominant deck in format, did get a new card in Lucky Roux. Lucky Roux is a 4-cost 1k counter blocker, but only 2000 power. This blocker has an on-play effect of trashing a character card with 6000 power or more from your hand to draw 2 cards. Now, that's kind of like a net 0, which can be really nice, actually, some filtering with Shanks, especially because in a deck list like this, a lot of your stuff is high end, right? 6000 power or more is basically half of your deck. This deck also running the Trafalgar Law, right? A really nice card. Although you might not get the removal of the old Lucky Roux in this specific deck list, you got a couple new blockers that have been really nice since OP12 and on in the Lucky Roux and this Shanks. Especially depending on the ban list, Shanks might be on the upper end of the win column of the ban list. This might be one that you want to keep your eyes out for, right? Especially because in that starter deck, it also got the new Uta, it got the new Shanks, right? Playing this card for 6 cost in general and playing this potentially for 2, especially if you get one of these 3 boss monsters on the field in the late game. Although, especially right now before the ban list and whatnot, I'm not super high on Shanks. I see the potential of where it could be, especially when we were in the OP09, OP10 format. I definitely think it's one of the decks that we really need to visit, especially when the ban list happens. Now, Green Supernova decks got a little card as well, a 3-cost 3000 power Bonnie blocker with a 1k counter. On opponent's attacks once per turn, you can set up to one of your Dawn cards as active. Now, personally, I'm going to be really honest. This card has a weird placement within the game. I personally don't know if it's better than a Roux, right? Because you have to wait until your opponent's attack. Not necessarily like a Roux where you're always at the end of turn going to get that restand. The reason I think it's a little weird is mostly because with removal decks in the format, right? I mean, think about right now prior to the ban list, you've got like Godthread in Blue Purple Luffy. You've got Rob Lucci and Marshall D. Teach decks. Although removal is maybe a little bit on the decline, you're not guaranteed the value off the Bonnie. So I'm not sure if it's actually good enough to really go in decks, especially because I would much rather play the Kid Killer Searcher, because although it doesn't have blocker, I can search for a piece of the puzzle that I would need, especially in a Supernova kind of package, and it has that same effect. You do have to get rid of that character though, so that is the downside. So if you don't really see yourself needing the draw on the Kid Killer and you want to take it out, maybe put in the Bonnie instead, I could see you doing that. But if you want to work with a Bonnie list, playing a couple of those copies, I put 2 in. I don't know if you need to. The changes that I kind of made for my OP12 Bonnie list is I took out 2 killers, right? Kid Killer does have some value, right? Being able on that on block to draw a card, but in a Bonnie version that's not playing a Roux, you might want to have more options in the early game to be able to get that restand on the Dawn to be able to use leader effect. Not saying that this is the best version of Bonnie that you could play, but I think is one of the better builds that can fit in this Bonnie. But honestly, I mean, I really like a Roux in the format. This is a blocker that you can play on 3 if you're on the odd curve in comparison to a Roux, which you can only play on your even curve second turn. There's pros and cons to both of whether you prefer to go first or second, I guess. And I think it's just honestly going to be meta dependent. Now, a brand new Green Luffy came into the game as well. 4 cost, 5,000 power, a 1k counter. Your turn on play, if your leader is multicolored and your opponent has 7 or less Dawn cards on their field, your opponent rests one of their active Dawn cards at the start of their next main phase. Now, especially as like a Supernova, there's a couple different places where you can actually play this card, right? Like in Trafalgar Law, this is a new version of Stun Bonnie. And I think this guy is quite interesting, and one of the first decks that I thought of with this is Green Purple Luffy. Now, this is a standard battle first place list with Green Purple Luffy, and there's another PRB02 card in here that we'll talk about later in a different deck list. I wanted to talk about unique deck lists for each card, but this was playing a 3 of this, right? Especially in the early game, you could actually play down this card, or maybe in like the mirror match when you guys are kind of like battling Dawn, to be able to knock off their curve and especially ruin kind of the on play effect, right? I remember playing Trafalgar Law and I used the stun Bonnie on my Green Purple Luffy opponent to stun one of their Dawn on their upcoming 5 Dawn turn, so they couldn't play something like Sanji Pudding. This could be a really cool card in the mirror match and in plenty of different matchups as well, especially because this on play effect says your opponent has 7 or less Dawn cards on their field. That means that when you stun, they need to be at 7 or less. It doesn't matter going into the next turn on their Dawn phase, because as they go to 9 on their next Dawn phase, they're not going to be at 9, they'll be at 8, which could actually matter a ton, right? Especially with something like Blue Purple Luffy playing like 9-drop Linlin or 9-drop Sanji. It really forces them to like go 8 cost Katakuri and then pass with no active Dawn. I don't know, like I find this card to be really interesting in its wording. Outside of that though, I don't think it changes too much of this deck list. We've started to see more and more Hell's Judgment in decks in general, right? Especially in OP12. So if you watched me commentate the Grand Asia Open in Hong Kong, we saw a lot of this card and how good it kind of was. So if you don't have any, I would definitely get some. OP02. I'm not sure if this is a staple in Green Purple Luffy or even maybe Trafalgar Law, since I was talking about that deck earlier. But definitely if you feel like it can be really impactful in a specific tournament you're going to, right, based on your meta distribution that you've predicted, this could be really cool. I like this. I want to play around with this card. There's a new Zoro 2K that came in PRB02. It's a 4,000 power 4 cost with the term blocker. Not only that blocker, but on your opponent's turn, if this card would be rested by one of your opponent's character's effects, you may rest one of your other characters instead. I find this to be really interesting, potentially in something like the mirror match, you know, with all the different characters running around that rest different characters or Dawn, right? I'm talking like Hody Jones, Usohachi, even like something like in Yamato with like Izo. You have the opportunity potentially, instead of resting this blocker and really utilizing it for the end game, you can rest something else instead, almost completely nullifying one of your opponent's effects. I think Zoro is probably one of the best candidates for this card, right? Already having so many different search options for it to be able to find it. Honestly, probably a better 2K option than the Treasure Cruise one, because I think it's much more playable with the same stat line and counter line. It has blocker and stand ability, especially in a mirror match where everything literally rests anything, it feels like. Looking at this guy right here. Also looking at this guy. This is definitely probably a buff to Green Zoro in general, although it's not like a big boss monster or anything like that. And honestly, especially with this Koshiro, you can protect this guy from being KO'd and rested at the same time, kind of nullifying like the 3-cost Tashigi 2K, because that's not searchable in your deck. It's not going to be the most glamorous addition that we're going to talk about in all these different deck lists, but a good one nonetheless. Now, a new Jinbe comes in as well, and you see 4-cost 5,000 power Jinbe, and you shudder because you think of the Doflamingo Jinbe that got banned, but this one's a little bit different with its on-play effect. You look at the top 5 cards, you reveal a 7 Warlords of the Sea type card other than Jinbe, place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. There's no playing down effect at all. It also has a when attacking effect of placing up to 1 character with the cost of 1 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I think this card sucks. And I couldn't fit it in Doflamingo, right? Doflamingo just really hurting, just like Shanks did, especially when Blue Purple Luffy came around. The best place I see this card, though, is in Boa, right? Especially when you have a leader effect that can draw you a card after bottom decking a character. Why not add a card that does bottom deck something if it gets to attack to be able to utilize your leader effect? Now, the problem was I really struggled on where I wanted to put this card because even in Boa, I'm not a huge fan. I decided to only put a one of in it. It was so difficult to think about what card I would take out, right? Like, although it gives you that search option, this has an even better removal effect. This has really good removal. This has really good removal. This is just cracked. Even Jozu has like better removal. So I think it's got to be like one of your events, either 3000 World or Red Rock. But even that feels bad. But Boa definitely in one of the rogue categories. I don't really think mine's another option in the archetype to get off your leader effect on that once per turn more consistently, especially because with that search effect as well, you can find a ton of these cards within your deck for the future turns, pieces of the puzzle. You can kind of have like a pseudo double searcher effect with the Sengoku and Jinbe. Now, this Marco is not overly glamorous, right? As a 4-cost 6,000 power Land of Wano former Whitebeard pirates, keep note of the former part, we'll talk about that in a sec. This 4-cost blocker actually has an on KO effect of draw 2 cards. Now, I've seen some people talk about this card in Nami. I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't buy it. But a deck that I thought this could fit really nicely in is actually the Ace and Whitebeard leader from the starter deck. In case you don't know what this leader does, because we actually don't have it yet out here in the West, it's a 5-life mono blue 5,000 power leader that says activate main once per turn. You reveal a card with the type of Whitebeard pirates from your hand, and you draw 1 card and place the revealed card on the top of your deck. So kind of similar to something like Marco, right? Manipulating your top deck. Now, if you're unaware, the word former is super impactful in the One Piece trading card game, especially with something like Izo, right? A 1-drop searcher within the archetype, looked specifically for a type including Whitebeard pirates. You see former Whitebeard pirates and you're like, oh, can you find Marco within this deck? Especially we know because cards like Brand New cannot find stuff like 10-drop Kuzan, right, who's former Navy. But here's the trick. Brand New and Izo, right, both searchers looking for these kinds of cards. There's actually a reason why Izo can find former Whitebeard Pirates cards, but Brand New can't find former Navy cards. In the One Piece trading card game, when you're looking for searchers, you're looking for what is around the typing in the text. If you're looking for bracket Navy or bracket whatever type of card, you cannot find a former whatever typing version, and in Brand New's case, former Navy, right? It is looking for the exact specific type Navy. But Izo, on the other hand, having Whitebeard pirates in quotation marks, is looking for just anywhere in the typing where it says Whitebeard pirates and anything containing Whitebeard pirates. So especially in this deck where Izo quotation finding Whitebeard pirates Ace in quotation, finding whitebeard pirates, and literally all of your reveal effect, even the searcher, whitebeard pirates in quotations, whitebeard pirates in quotations. Your reveal effects also having quotation, whitebeard pirates, quotation, whitebeard pirates, makes this fit so well. I'm a huge fan of this card, especially in this specific deck list, even though we don't have this starter deck yet to be able to play with these cards, but I think it could actually be a very cool option within the archetype and maybe boost it up a little bit. Now, although Buggy is a trash deck, and you probably shouldn't play it, to be honest, just trust me on that. I'm totally kidding. It's a good deck. I like rage baiting you guys. Buggy did get an addition to the potential card pool of the Cross Guild former Baroque Works typing in this 2-cost 1000 power 1k counter Mr. 3. Now, this is a 2-cost chum blocker with an effect. When this character is rested by an opponent's effect, you may activate this effect, trash this character, and draw 2 cards. I think this card could actually be really nice within Zoro, right? Because you get around Zoro's leader effect with this card on the field, especially if it's like one of the only cards on the field. If they decide to rest it with something like a Kuina in the early game or something like that, or maybe they try to utilize the 2-drop that rests a blocker, you could just go ahead and draw 2 cards off of that. That's a +1 overall after playing the card, but like +2 on the defensive side, especially when there's other cards like Usohachi, Dead Man's Game, Hody Jones, or whatever's in the format. Mr. 3 is a great way to be able to just draw those cards, fill up the hand, be able to utilize it. But I really don't know where to put it in the Buggy list, to be honest, because I feel like Buggy is not really one of those decks that you're super flexible on. So I knocked down a Gravity Blade and a Pudding for 2 of these. I don't know if that's correct. I don't know if you've even played this card at all. But one of the things with Buggy that I do know is that you'll lose hand size, right? Especially because there's a lot of these cards where you don't have a +1 net. You have like either a net 0 or a -1 output when you're playing these different combos. And with your leader effect, that also trashes a card, right? Like you could run out of cards in hand, which is why some people in Buggy play stuff like Sanji's Pilaf. So I really like having this Mr. 3 in the deck list to be able to potentially fill up the hand. And although you might not get the draw 2 every time because they're not resting anything, it can be key, I feel like, in some matchups. I think Buggy could be a real winner as well with the upcoming ban list. So if you're looking to maybe prepare for a deck that can possibly benefit a lot from the ban list, I mean, even though I make fun of Buggy all the time just because, I mean, I like doing it, I think Buggy could be a real winner and maybe you want to buy it. A lot of the cards are real cheap in Buggy. Like, it's honestly one of the cheapest decks that you can build and be meta viable. I will admit that. It might be cheaper than Bello Betty. Is it? I mean, it might. Now, a lot of people, especially myself, were so excited when this Charlotte Pudding was announced. For the Big Mom Pirates typing, it's a 7-cost 5,000 power character with a 1k stat line, which may not be all that impressive, but with an on-play Dawn -2, if your leader has the Big Mom Pirates type and your opponent has 6 or more Dawn cards on the field, draw 2 cards. Then on top of that, you can play a Big Mom Pirates type character with 6,000 to 8,000 power from your hand. What are some of the cards with 6,000 to 8,000 power, you may ask? A staple in the deck, Purple Katakuri. A staple in the deck, Charlotte Sparrow. I mean, that's like pretty much it. But those cards alone are just so good within the deck, and especially with Sparrow as well, right? If you had the 3-cost Charlotte Pudding on field and you went ahead and played the 7-cost Pudding to cheat out the Sparrow, and then used Sparrow's activate main effect, your Dawn -2 from the Pudding would actually be a Dawn net 0, not losing any Dawn on the play, because your Charlotte Pudding's gonna re-ramp a Dawn as rested, and your Sparrow's gonna ramp a Dawn as active. That's kind of an insane combo, and so much potential. And we haven't even talked about how if you go Charlotte Pudding and Katakuri, right, that is also a net zero because the end of turn phase, your Katakuri is going to re-ramp a Dawn as rested. As a big fan of Katakuri, this is pretty close to what I'm going to be trying when PRB02 releases and we get that new SR pudding. I personally think 9-drop Linlin's gonna get the ban, but you could easily replace this card with like 2 more Linlins. This is just a version of the deck that won a standard battle in Japan, so a verified, like, at least a winning deck list already, whereas mine is more like a theory. Pretty much exact to what you were running before, especially when we talked about Katakuri when OP11 first came out. And I think, honestly, again, like, I mean, there's so many decks that I think are going to be winners of the potential ban list. Like, even if 9-cost Linling gets banned, which I think it should, this card is not mandatory to play in the purple Katakuri deck. It is just a good option. I think that this 10-drop is just as good in the deck, right? It's a 12,000 power rush that can make your leader a 7K. We saw in the Hong Kong Grand Asia Open how good making your leader 7K can be in a format with blue-purple Luffy, so this has to apply as well within this, right? I'm a big fan of purple Katakuri. I will be for a while. It's debatably one of my favorite purple decks to play, and I think you can do some good things in the upcoming formats with this deck. There's a new purple Doflamingo on the way, a 5-cost 6,000 power 1K counter Dofi. This is a blocker with an on-play effect of if your leader is multicolored, add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck as rested. Now, this has many applications, right? Especially in the Don Quixote Pirates 7 Warlords package. One of the things that you could say is Sugar, right? Sugar being a good leader that can get that ramped Dawn because it's, well, multicolored. But I personally thought of blue-purple Luffy, right? And there's 2 options. I just basically took the Las Vegas winning deck that played the Don Quixote Doflamingo package and just slapped in 2 of these in there. You could also, if 9-cost Linlin were to get the ban, you could just like replace this with a 8-drop Katakuri. I don't think that's a problem. So long as the leader stays around, I think that this could be a really interesting package within the Dofi specific archetype, right? The Don Quixote Pirates type with the 8-drop Doflamingo and the 5-drop Rosinante. I have a friend here at Locals that plays a lot of this specific version of blue-purple Luffy, and one of the things that he complains about sometimes is with the Doflamingo effect, with that on play of playing a 5-cost Don Quixote Pirates type or less from your hand, he doesn't always want to just have this option of Rosinante, even though it is a very nice card, right? You can restand 2, you can tap out all the way and still have some stuff for like Gum Gum Giant or any of those Gear 2. So having another card of this Doflamingo, which by the way, with the Dawn -1 playing this card, you actually get that re-ramped because your leader is multicolored, not minusing Dawn really at all. It's really nice for consistency and being able to swarm the board while also not losing out on Dawn, right? Being able to use your leader effect in the next turn, right? Because if you're playing this on curve and you Dawn -1, if you don't play this guy, you're not going to be able to use leader effect in the next turn. So it helps you stay consistent in trying to do that. I'm not going to say that this list is perfect. It's basically a modified version of the regional winning list, so it's definitely a start somewhere. Now let's go back to that Nami that I brushed aside. It's a 2-drop, 2,000 power 1K counter with a trigger of playing the card. After playing the card, it does have this on play effect. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a Straw Hat Crew type card other than Nami, and add it to your hand. You saw that this can be viable in green-purple Luffy, right? Just having another search option for the consistency of finding your different pieces like Sanji Pudding, the 6-cost Rusher, Gum Gum Giant, any of that schnaz, is that a new word? But I also think this could be really interesting in black-purple Luffy, right? This doesn't help you get your leader effect off like the Robin or the Zoro Juro does, but it's another searcher option that you can utilize and potentially off-trigger alongside your Trafalgar Law, right? This is a top 5 where Trafalgar Law is potentially a top 4. I think that this also has really good synergy, right, with your Nami. If you go ahead and play that down, you can already do the the Beer Luffy Easter egg if you watch that live stream of the Grand Asia Open. You can utilize this Luffy Dawn -2 on the when attacking very, very easily. It's got really good synergy between those 2 cards total, and although it really only works for this one, just another way to get your leader effect off and reutilize Dawn, especially in an easier situation with that Luffy, is just kind of a small boost, right? Especially because it is searching for any of these different pieces as well. Black Purple Luffy does have a 50-50 shot of being hit by the ban list because of, well, one of the best event cards in the game, but also dodging the ban list, right? Because they could just hit the leader or 9-cost Lin Lin. So this is very like up and down, but I know that Black Purple Luffy is just a popular archetype in general among the fans and the community, so it doesn't hurt to give you guys a really cool list. Now, the 8-cost Gecko reincarnation is officially here from PRB02. It's a 6-cost, 7,000 power brick kind of character, but Thriller Bark Pirates and 7 Warlords of the Sea. It has an on-play effect that if your leader has the Thriller Bark Pirates type, play up to 1 character with a cost of 4 or less from your trash rested, then give a rested Dawn to one of your leaders. I could see this be played in both the Gecko Moria list and also the Perona list, but I'm going to focus more on Perona. Mostly because I saw a really great video from the Shakarikisu YouTube channel that actually shows a really cool game with this Perona deck. Now, I will make sure to link this Perona deck in the description below, but in case you've already forgotten, this is any 4-cost or less character from your trash as rested. You just need to have a leader that's Thriller Bark Pirates. So in terms of this deck, there's some really cool synergies how you can bring back a Ryuma and KO something. You can bring back Hiyori into turning into a Ryuma or a Kawamatsu and drawing a card. You could bring back Inoop to draw cards. You can bring back Otama to draw cards. You could bring back a Bartolomeo to then use your leader effect to rest something and draw 1, trash 1. Like, there's a lot of really cool, interesting things that you can maybe do with this Gecko. And that doesn't even include the potential that you can utilize with the Gecko Moria leader, right? Because the Gecko Moria leader you can get on an 8 Dawn turn. You can play this guy down, give a rested Dawn to your leader, and use leader effect, right? With that Dawn ×2 that you have to rest. So there's a situation on like an 8 Dawn turn where you can get 3 4-cost or higher characters on the field. This Gecko is very much checked in comparison to its 8-cost, which, by the way, is signed on the wall over here. But I still think, especially in these more niche Thriller Bark decks that really need some help, this is a nice little buff. Coming out on the tail end, we have this 6-cost, 6,000 power Sabo. It's a 2K with Dressrosa and Rev Army typing. If you have 15 or more cards in your trash, give this card in your hand -3 cost. It's a blocker as well. I kind of struggled with this, honestly, because I was very wary on what decks can consistently get 15 cards, especially in the trash. I was thinking of some of the Rev Army leaders like Koala or Sabo, but like with the Dragon, do you actually have 15 cards in the trash? Or are you hovering more between like the 7 to 12 range? I don't really know because I haven't tested it, but I do know that Rob Lucci can get 15 cards in the trash for sure. And I know a lot of you are tired of Rob Lucci, and I get it. But one of the interactions that I thought was really interesting with the Sabo is the 4-cost Rebecca. Although it may not be the most ideal play, if you have 15 or more cards in trash, let's say 16 for example, Rebecca grabs a cost of 3 to 7 other than Rebecca. You can go ahead, grab this 2K. Because if you had 16 in the trash and now you're at 15 after grabbing the Sabo, you can actually play this Sabo from your Rebecca onto the field, right? Because in your hand, this Sabo is actually a 3-cost if you fulfill the trash requirement. It's not the greatest combo, I would say, especially because you can't grab it on Manchury at all. But I thought this was like a really neat interaction, this card right here. I thought this was cool. And especially with Bartolomeo in the deck, as oftentimes playing this as a 3-cost blocker in the late game, you can actually play this guy down in the late game for the same cost, but on the field, it's a bigger body, 3,000 more power, and also 3 more cost after it's played on the field. I'm not sure what the ratio is in comparison from Bartolomeo to Sabo because, well, Bartolomeo can be grabbed off of Manchury and Rebecca all the time, but I think it's viable to at least fit one in your deck. I think think there's a world where you could play this card. It's definitely not on the higher end of the good cards in this set. Now, a lot of people continue to cry as to why Marshall D. Teach is continuing to get support, and the Blackbeard Pirates typing got another piece that they can utilize in this 4-cost 5,000 power 1k counter Shiryu. This Shiryu having 2 effects. If your leader has the Blackbeard Pirates type, this character gains blocker and +4 cost, right? Especially in Teach, this is always going to be a blocker and 8 costs on the field. But with an on KO, if your leader has the Blackbeard Pirates type, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a base cost of 4 or less, right? Especially in the mirror match, this card can do some damage, right? Dealing with base costs. And with any other deck that has any sort of cost addition to it, go ahead, KO that too. But if you heard me talk about on the live stream with several members of the chat about this Shiryu, I was talking about how this Shiryu, even though it is a good card, I don't believe that it's a staple in Blackbeard. I think it's like kind of a tech card, maybe a 1, 2 of, and we started to see exactly that, this being a winning deck list in a 3-on-3 tournament in the PRB02 format. This version of the deck only playing one of them, I truly think that this actually correctly is a tech card that you can play. Probably one of the options that you take out in replacement for this card is one of the Kuzans, which has a lot of value in itself, right? Being able on that on KO effect to grab a Van Augur, grab a Burgess, heck, even grab a Kuzan, because it's any Blackbeard Pirates typing, it doesn't have a name restriction. So I see it in very niche scenarios. We'll have to see where the format kind of transitions to, as Blackbeard has kind of been on the decline in 11, but kind of a little bit more on the up in 12, as all the Bello Betties and Zoro Rush decks and stuff like that have started to decline. But we may see pilots piloting this Blackbeard deck zee-ha-ha-haing their way into top cuts, especially with a new option. And also, this has counter on it, which I think is a huge deal. I like this card a lot because it has counter. That's honestly like the big thing. Bandai loves giving Otama 2k counter, and they've given another one with this 2 cost. This Land of Wano card with the trigger of resting one of your opponent's characters with a 4 cost or less has an activate main of resting the character and adding a life card from the top or bottom to your hand. It says, up to one of your leaders or characters gains 3,000 power during the turn. This honestly can be a really nice endgame card for any yellow kind of decks, especially if that life card doesn't necessarily matter. You can give yourself a lot of power to be able to go ahead and swing for game, especially if you play this on a previous turn and it survived on the field. You can use that activate main for no cost to your Dawn at all. This is a really neat card. I don't know how good it is in comparison to other cards in this set, but I think I really like this card in Yamato, right? Especially with this Izo that gives banish, and also this Yamato, right? Already getting 3,000 power with 2 Dawn. Oh, also you have this guy that gains 3,000 power. Like, you have a lot of different options within this deck to be able to boost power to go for that end game. I like this also as just a searchable 2k to find, and maybe like a potential trigger to be able to utilize. So I've knocked this guy down just a little bit, although I still do see his value of resting chum blockers. So maybe you get rid of some of these guys, the Tonoyasus. There's different ideas that you can play around within this deck, but I think it's no mistake that Yamato could be one of the better options to be able to play this card and utilize it. I also kind of liked this card potentially in Nami, right? Especially because you could draw a card off of your leader effect on it. It could have some value in a deck that doesn't really have searchers, so you can just use like standard good 2Ks. The searchable one though, in a deck that's looking for Land of Wano, probably the best option in my opinion. Now, Boa Hancock is another yellow card, one of the SRs in PRB02, a 5-cost 7,000 power character that is Film, 7 Warlords of the Sea, and Kuja Pirates. Also has a trigger on it, the trigger being KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. This has an on-play effect of discarding 1 card with trigger from your hand, and up to one of your opponent's rested characters other than Luffy cannot attack until the end of your opponent's next turn. I think there's a lot of cool places that this card could fit, but some of you are really big fans in Arlong, and if you know this channel, I don't think Arlong's really that good. But I'm gonna throw you a bone anyways, because I love you. subscribe. I've got this Arlong list here that you can utilize. This Arlong list, if you're looking at it, is literally all triggers but 4 cards. Literally almost every single life is going to be some sort of trigger. You've got different either searches from triggers like the Dureshi, or trash a trigger kind of card like the Boa Hancock, or I mean your leader effect. So it makes sense why this deck is 90% triggers. You've got a couple different freezing effects within this deck that I think are really neat, including this Arlong, you have Lord of the Coast, this Arlong, and now your Boa Hancock. It's no secret that Arlong can be boosted by this deck, and how high, I'm not honestly sure how high, but who knows, maybe with the ban list, Arlong is king. If you really want to piss off your opponents with triggers, this is probably the deck to do it with. And also, this is honestly a really cool like off-meta night kind of deck, or if you just want to bring spicy to the locals because you're 0-4 every single week with the best deck in format, but you're not really figuring it out and you're slightly frustrated by it, just bring this, have some fun. I really like the Jewelry Bonnie in this deck. It may seem like kind of the weirder ones of this, but especially when you have this on field with a Dawn on it and you have maybe like a Basil Hawkins burning one of your opponent's life, or you're just hitting life in general, being able to draw the cards, I feel like is super important, right? Especially as this Boa Hancock also trashes one from the hand. So like you have another card in your hand that can minimize the amount that you need. So draw is honestly kind of important, I feel like, whether that's the Dureshi or this right here, or honestly one of your draw 2 triggers, right? Like Baby 5, draw 2, Basil Hawkins, draw 2. There's a couple draw 2 stuff in here, which I find really interesting. Oh yeah, Bonnie also has this trigger of draw 2, trash 1. Now, the final card we'll talk about in this video is Ace. This Ace made so much noise, especially for Black Yellow Luffy fans, right? There's a lot of people in the community that are huge fans of this deck. This 5-cost Whitebeard Pirates Ace, 7,000 power on play. If you have a face-up life card, you may play up to 1 Sabo, Ace, or Luffy with cost of 2 from your hand or trash. This obviously has great synergy with Black Yellow Luffy, right? Especially because you can leave yourself at 1 face-up life card from your leader effect. You can go ahead, cheat out those babies from the trash that you used to do all the time from Gecko Moria. And although you don't get 2 and you only get 1, that 1 is still probably very valuable in helping you continuously gain power through the turns on your leader. One of the consensus that I feel like about Black Yellow Luffy with this new 5-cost Ace leader though is that it helps, but it's still not there yet. But I do want to shout out SQ's list over on Twitter that he posted the other day, talking about this Black Yellow Luffy list with this Ace that he's kind of been trying out, right? Very similar to before, being able to have multiple ways to take your own life, plenty of options of 5 cost on these guys, and overall just trying to get you in that game plan. I like the Viola tech in this deck, right? Being able to look at you or your opponent's life cards, or potentially if you use leader effect and leave some guys up face up in life, you can actually flip them back over to be able to allow those cards to come into your hand. Here's another version for you Black Yellow Luffy fans from Jelly Beans, another great Asian player, which is a little bit different. This doesn't have the Rush Ace in it. This is the alternate art from PRB02, but a lot of people are trying to bring back this deck that was once in its high glory. And one thing to also note, this is a draft, right? The cards literally just came out. So in general with this video, there's still a lot to be determined. But that's going to be all. This is a very long video with a lot of decks, so I hope you really enjoyed it. And again, if you haven't already, and if you made it to the end of this video, definitely consider subscribing because, well, you watched like over an hour of me, or well, maybe it's over an hour. I'm not actually sure. It depends how the editing goes, but a long time nonetheless. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this and hope to see you in the next video. Also, thank you to our channel members that we have that are going to be showing up on screen that donate a little bit of money each month to the channel here on YouTube to help me continue to do this full time. Super appreciate you guys.